I wanted to kick off by talking about Jesus Christ Superstar because, as I say, it is my favourite musical of all time. It absolutely stands the test of time. But it's fascinating too because we're sort of in this new puritanical era, aren't we, when lots of art is being picked apart by people who I like to call the woke mob. But of course, 50 years ago, when Jesus Christ Superstar launched, it was one of the most controversial musicals of all time. So I was just interested to know if you saw any parallels between what's going on today and with what you and Lloyd Webber dealt with then.
Wow. Well, not really. Superstar is so much a part of my life and a part of my past, and I think it's a good show. I think it's proven that by lasting so long. I know a lot of people at the time were very concerned about it, but it was a sincere piece. Hadn't been written to shock people. It hadn't been written to upset people. It was
50 years ago. It actually wasn't possible for you to initially get Jesus Christ Superstar onto a stage. So that's why you released it as a rock opera first, and it took on its own. It got its own following, I guess, which was able to make it a massive West End and then Broadway production.
Well, we always wanted to write for the theatre, but we couldn't get our idea for a musical in which Jesus, his life story, or the last 7 days of his life, was told through the eyes of Judas Iscariot. And this was 1969 when we were writing it. And because no theatre producer wanted to risk it, and I don't blame them, really. I don't think I would have done if I'd been a producer in 1969. But we did get support from a record company, MCA Records, in the UK. A gentleman called Brian Brolly was our boss, and O'Brien and his team a great deal. And they liked the idea, and above all, I think they liked the songs. And they said, well, you can do a single, and if the single works, we then might do an album, and if the album works, maybe there'll be a show down the road. And it was really all that we had. But in a way, it was what turned it into a success, because I think if we'd opened it straight away in the theatre, so if some producer had said, yes, we'll give it a go, we would have understandably been asked to open in an out-of-town theatre. We wouldn't have had the rock group that we needed. We wouldn't have had the facilities or the technology to do it in a show. And by doing it on record, over 50 years ago now, we were able to use all the forces of music that Andrew wanted, the choirs, the orchestra, the rock band, without worrying about how it would be staged. And we just wanted to make a great record so people could take the record home and maybe imagine the story in their heads. That was perhaps our greatest ambition. I didn't think for a long time it would actually ever be staged. But the record turned out to be a big hit, particularly in America. It didn't go very well here to begin with. It got a few plays, but it didn't really take off. Whereas in America, it went to #1 very quickly in early '71. And as a result of that, we were inundated with offers to stage it, which was the exact opposite of what had been happening before we wrote it. So we were very lucky. We were hailed as marketing geniuses, but really, it was all a mistake. We were forced to make the album. But thank goodness we were.
Well, look, lyrically, musically, it is genius, and it has stood the test of time 50 years on. Of course, you did also work with Lloyd Webber on Evita and Joseph too. Do you ever think you'll come together again in any significant way? Because your relationship has had lots of ups and lots of downs over the years, I think it's fair to say.
Well, nothing serious. I mean, it's like, Mick and Keith or John and Paul, if I may elevate myself to that.
Oh, you absolutely you can.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think there's always a chance that we might do something together, although we're both getting on a bit now. And in a way, perhaps it was better for both of us that we didn't try and keep going. We were very lucky. We had 3 big hits. And Andrew then went on to huge success with Phantom and Cats. And I struggled for a little bit, but eventually I found my niche. Well, firstly with Benny and Bjorn doing chess, which I absolutely love, and then working with Disney, which really was a godsend to me. And it was such fun working in a different medium, but still doing my job. I was still writing words, which I thought I was tolerably good at. And when I suggested to Disney that Elton John might be the man to do the music for The Lion King, I think that was my biggest single contribution to Disney while I was there.
Yeah.
Because Elton just...
They owe you. They owe you big time. I've got to ask you about Benny and Bjorn, ABBA. I mean, isn't it just incredible that they have new music for the first time in 38 years? Something that an ABBA fan like me never thought would happen. And then you listen to the songs and, I mean, they're as good as their early hits.
Well, they are phenomenal. And I like to think, in a way, I spotted them before the pop intellectuals of the day. I think up until about Fernando, even though they had some wonderful songs before then, which were big hits, a lot of the pop critics at the time, the rockers, rather looked down on ABBA. They thought it's all Eurovision, it's not very good. But it always struck me that some of these melodies, some of these orchestrations, some of the singing, some of the playing was seriously top-notch. And I remember driving, funnily enough, ironically, to work on Evita with Andrew. And I was driving over to his house, and Fernando came on the air. And it was the first time I'd heard it. And I thought, this is sensationally good. And I was quite pleased, even though I hadn't met them at the time and didn't know them at all, other than through their music. I was quite pleased that they justified my sort of review of them in the car. I was on my own, so nobody appreciated this. But working with them was a great thrill, and it was lovely to meet them. And Chess has had an up and down career, but the record was one of my favourites I've ever been involved with. The show in London did pretty well. The show on Broadway was a bit of a disaster, I'm afraid. But the piece has lived, and it's lived through a lot of trauma. And the fact that it was a disaster on Broadway and yet is being done all the time, until COVID. Actually, even that's not true, because it's running in Moscow at the moment. Would you believe it's running now? It's been run for over a year in Moscow. Which is very exciting, because the piece is all about, as you may know, it's all about the Cold War and love.
Yeah. So I was delighted actually when it came back to the West End, and there was a new version. Gosh, it was a couple of years ago now. I went. It was very very good.
Michael Ball. It was so exciting. Yeah. Michael always said he wanted to sing Anthem, which he does in his act occasionally. Bless you, Michael. But he wanted to sing it playing the part of Anatoly, and he knocked it out of the park.
No, he was incredible. Look, I have to ask you about politics, of course. You were a very staunch Conservative Party man, close to Margaret Thatcher.
Dan, I really don't want to get into all this. I'm here to talk about fun, to talk about Jesus Christ Superstar.
No, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. Nothing you want to say politically.
One thing I will say is that I do not believe in making your work should not be, if you don't want it to be, it shouldn't be too political. And I just like to tell great stories. And if there's a message in them, in Chess we were talking about the Cold War, and maybe there's a message there, but I'm not quite sure what the message is.
Well, no, I was going to. What I was.
I try to be an entertainer.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, do you think there could be Thatcher the musical one day?
Well, actually, I think there could be. Certainly not now. But I think great, whatever you think of them, pro or anti, great characters in politics and in history are always something which will attract the attention of writers, be they musical writers, be they novelists, be they playwrights. And, for example, President Nixon, who probably doesn't have a huge fan club, there's that wonderful opera Nixon in China, which is a very sophisticated work. But something like that, Nixon's visit to China, can inspire an opera. So I would have thought that Margaret Thatcher, or indeed several other political characters of the 20th century, could certainly inspire a musical, but it shouldn't be too soon. I mean, there are musicals about Diana. Well, I think that's a bit soon. I haven't seen them. They may be brilliant. They may be not so brilliant. But it's very difficult to write about something when it's actually still kind of going on. And one thing you can say about Eva Peron or about Jesus is that they were a long time ago.
Yeah.
So,
no, I agree. I mean, I think that was the genius of Evita, actually. And, oh, my goodness, I mean, I want you to watch Diana the musical because I'd love to know what you think. But, oh, gosh.
Where's it on? Is it on something?
It's on Netflix, and I have to be honest with you, it is an atrocity. I mean, it's one of the worst musicals I've ever seen, both musically and lyrically. So, but I'm interested to know what you think.
Well, I have not seen it, and I... Maybe I'll watch it, but you know, that's your view. I'm not sure what mine would be, as I haven't seen it. But
look, I've got to get to the questions from our brilliant viewers, Sir Tim Rice, because they are coming in thick and fast. So we'll do this quick fire. Helen via GB Views asks, "Is there any story you would love to tell in a musical?"
Well, I have told a few stories that I really loved. Jesus, Eva Peron. I mean, a lot. I've got a sort of black book of ideas for shows, and the trouble is, time marches on, and I'm not going to do, well, if any of them. I'm not sure I will. But one idea I've been working on for a long time is the story of Machiavelli, who is a fascinating character. He's a bit like Eva Peron, not that he was an Argentine lady, but he's a bit like Eva Peron in that a lot of people know his name, but they don't know much about him, which was the case when I first read about Machiavelli. I thought, this guy gets mentioned, he was in Shakespeare, he's all over the shop. I don't know much about him, and I read a few books about him, and he became such a fascinating character that I think he would make a great opera. I've been playing around with the idea, and it might happen. But that's one tale I would like to tell. But there are plenty of others.
Good answer.
If I were 23, I would probably give you 5 or 6 I'll have a go at. But
no, that's a very good answer. Very good answer. Now. Looking back, Lewis, also via GB Views, asks, what body of work lyrically are you most happy with?
Sorry, that was a different question came up on the flash. What was the question again? I was reading one question, getting another.
What body of work lyrically are you most happy with?
Wow, that's a difficult one. I don't know. I mean, sometimes there are songs, or it's like, there are numbers in Say Evita which I really think work lyrically, and there are some I think in all the shows I think, I would have done that slightly differently. It's a very hard question to answer. It's a good question. If I had to name my favourite lyrics in Evita, I would say probably High Flying Adored. In Chess, I would say The Story of Chess, which is a very complicated history of chess, which rhymes and fits Bjorn and Benny's music perfectly. But there's a lot of stuff I'd rather keep quiet about, frankly. But Superstar, the song Superstar, was quite in a good way. In a way, it was quite shocking. So when people heard that line, "Jesus Christ Superstar, do you think you're what they say you are?" When they heard that in 1969, that was something which I think made a big impact and helped the cause. But no lyricist in musicals can make an impact without brilliant music. And I've been so lucky with great composers from Andrew to Bjorn and Benny, Alan Menken. I've been very lucky. And a recent...
Yeah, you've worked with the best. You have worked with the best. And on that note, actually, final question is from Ken via GB Views, who asks, the last recorded song issued during Elvis Presley's lifetime was It's Easy for You, which you wrote. What did you think of it?
Well, I think it's quite a nice country song. I don't think it's the greatest song that Andrew and I have written, but I think it's a good song. And we're invited by, as several of my songwriting friends have been, we were invited to write a song for Elvis on the off chance that he might record it. And we wrote a song called It's Easy for You. I'm not very good at writing one-off pop songs because I kind of need a more dramatic background, but I kind of wrote it imagining Elvis's marital problems. So it was a bit like a mini musical in my mind. And Andrew wrote a lovely Elvis country tune, and he recorded it. And it was awful because we heard, great, your song is on Elvis's new album. Fantastic. Then about a few weeks later, Elvis is dead, which was awful. I mean, I was such an Elvis fan. I mean, Elvis was a very important part of my childhood, as were the Everly Brothers, Chuck Berry, Eddie Cochran, Little Richard, all these people.
God, fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Well, look, can you hold up that album cover again? Because this is the 50th anniversary edition of Jesus Christ Superstar, and my God, there are some real gems on this. I was listening to it earlier, some real unheard gems, right?
Well, there's a few outtakes on it.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of outtakes, funnily enough, because we were totally unknown, and we were a bit worried about spending too much money for the record company, because, you know, they were giving us an advance, and we were a bit concerned.
Yeah. That studio time is expensive. Well, look,
exactly.
Sir Tim Rice,
could I just say, Dan,
yes.
Could I just say very quickly,
yes,
thank you for mentioning Chance to Shine, a great cricket charity, and you're very generously going to give some money towards this, which helps children
indeed,
underprivileged schools get into sport. And very quickly, I should also mention my other pet love at the moment, pet cause, is the Bob Willis Fund for Prostate Cancer. The great England cricketer Bob Willis died not long ago. He's a good friend of mine. He died of prostate cancer, which I've suffered from, and fortunately, touch wood, so far I've come through. But it's good that one can. I mean, often it's quite nice to be able to get the chance to promote some of these worthy causes. So thank you for your help.
And where can we find out more about that?
Well, Chance to Shine has a big website, and so does the Bob Willis Prostate Fund charity. You know, there's like the Andrew Strauss, there's the Ruth Strauss charity. Sport and my great love of cricket has given me a lot of opportunities to get involved with some decent causes, and both Bob Willis Fund and Chance to Shine are really good causes. So if anybody doesn't know about them, find out and give us a few bob.
Sir Tim Rice, absolutely brilliant message. And of course, the 50th anniversary edition of Jesus Christ Superstar. Without doubt, in my view, the greatest music of all time. No one is going to argue with me on that one. Is out now. Sir Tim Rice, you're a legend. Thank you so much for being here for tonight's Big Question. Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.